forgot to film the cold start. Here we are again, 55 degrees. I mean, it's not cold, but it's cold. You know what I mean? Today, we're going to do about 100, 120 miles, something around there. And, burn some more gas. It's going to be fun. Well, it might not be fun, but we're going to definitely burn some gas. The car I really like, the GS400. I want to talk to that guy one of these days. I just never see him. Anyway, I will check back in a little bit. So here's something interesting. I don't know if you can see. Obviously, delightful morning traffic, as always. But this Corvette right here, pretty neat. I can actually see myself in his rear view mirror because he has a camera rear view mirror, which is something Chevrolet's been doing for a while, actually, even though they're not necessarily that innovative most of the time. But I don't know, it's a pretty neat feature. I wouldn't mind having that. I mean, the great thing about that is it kind of doesn't matter day or night. You're going to get kind of, a good amount of clarity. I'm sure it's not, crystal clear, but I mean, I'm zooming in, hoping I can, it's not working. Hoping you can see what I see, but I mean, I actually see a white car in his rear view. So, that's pretty neat. Oh, nice. Just toss your smoke out. It's rare to see someone smoking in a Corvette these days. But I guess, guess he doesn't care. And that car, he could sell that car right now for probably more than he bought it for, even stinking of cigarettes. It is a pretty car. He has this like ratty old license plate frame, which, I'd just order a new one. You spend all that money on that car and you're going to have your ratty license plate frame. It's just surprising. Anyway, I was kind of thinking, since, there's all this time, maybe I'll just zoom us in there. That's a little better. With all of this time to think, I was thinking about, what are the most expensive repairs you've had to do to a car, and repairs that you had to do kind of last minute. You didn't realize it was going to be so expensive, like stuff that surprised you. Like when I had my 87 Corvette, I was driving one night and I was being a bit of a moron, foot to the floor, and it just revved, rah! And then there was no more forward motion. And I stopped and put it in drive, put it in first. Nothing worked. It was an automatic. And everything, it was just no go at all. I think you can almost see the reflection there if you look at his rear view mirror. It's not a reflection, it's a camera. But yeah, so I blew the transmission up. I knew that wasn't going to be cheap. Of course, I thought my warranty was going to cover it, and that was a whole debacle. But my 87 Corvette was just hot garbage. That thing broke all the time. It was just a steaming pile. But God, I love that car. So I'm not going to use any repairs from that car because it doesn't count at all. I would say, obviously, the clear winner and the top of the list would have to be the rodent damage to my Kia, $7,200. That is the most shocking repair ever that I've had. But I would say other ones, that certainly get up there. A close second to that, even though the dollar amount is nowhere close, but the cost was still high, in my opinion, for what it was, proportionally, was the repair of my 2008 Toyota Sienna. It was making all this racket. Just tons of racket. And I finally took it to my mechanic, George, and turns out it was the water pump. And he said, I got to warn you, this isn't going to be cheap. It's really hard to get to the water pump on this engine because it's like all the way at the bottom, and it's on the side. You know, it's like on the passenger side, I think. And it's really hard to get to. It's not that the part is that expensive, although I'm sure it was $250 or something, but it was the labor. So that job was around $700, and it's been great ever since. So I don't really have any complaints. It's really the only big thing that's gone wrong with that car, so I can't be mad. But that was shocking. You know, I was thinking water pump, $350, $400 tops, maybe $500, but $700. That was surprising. Next on my list would have to be the car I'm currently in, the 98 Lexus LS 400. I kind of got hit with a lot of repairs when I bought this car. There were a lot of maintenance things that hadn't been done, and they say generally, like, if your car's making a noise, don't ignore it, because it's making that noise for a reason. It's not lying. There is something wrong. If there's a noise, there's a problem. So, there were a lot of little things that needed doing, but common failure point in these cars is that the power steering pump will leak, and it'll just drip on the alternator, which is like right below it. So it takes out the alternator. My wife and I were in Las Vegas on a little vacation. It was our first trip in this car. I was driving one day and the battery light came on. And for those of you out there that haven't had a battery light come on, listen to me. Heed my advice, friends. If the battery light comes on, something is wrong. Don't just keep driving. Don't just say, that's weird. It's driving fine. No. There's something wrong. Pull over. Don't keep going. Usually in my experience with
in 1,000 feet, use the right 2 lanes to exit right
I need to know where I'm going,
I-5
actually.
Golden State Freeway.
Okay. That's
Then
what I
keep
thought.
left.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas or Nigel, whatever your name is. But yeah, in my experience, if the battery light
Exit
comes
to the
on,
right onto I-5 Golden State Freeway.
there is something going
Then
on.
use either lane to
I
stay
know.
left onto I-5 South Los Angeles.
So like the first time that happened was in my 89 Nissan Sentra. Battery light came on, but the car was running fine. I thought it was some sort of anomaly, and I kept driving. And I was on the freeway, like in between Austin and Dallas, and all of a sudden I just lost all power, and the car just started to brrr. Luckily, and this was amazing. That car loved me, and I loved it, and it coasted off the freeway, off the exit ramp, and into a mechanic shop. So I couldn't have been luckier. It was just amazing. I coasted into the mechanic shop. The alternator that was on the car had gone bad, and it was one that I had put on myself from O'Reilly's. And luckily there was an O'Reilly's nearby, and they were able to warranty out the alternator and have it delivered. Talk about just a lucky star. That was awesome. I was not so lucky with this car, however. The battery light came on, and at this point I knew better. I told my wife, I said, we have a very limited amount of time to drive this car before it stops working. It's working right now, but it's not going to for very long. Once the battery, once we lose all the juice, we're done, because the way it works, folks, and this is a very unscientific explanation, but basically when your car is running, like, it uses the battery to start the car,
use the left 2
and certainly, like, the car will draw power from the battery at times, but most of what's going on when the car is running is being run by the alternator. So your battery's there kind of just to get everything going. But once the engine's turning, the injectors are pulsing, all of that's kind of being fed by the alternator. So, you kind of forget what a big role the alternator has in everything. So if the alternator starts undercharging, or not charging at all, that means that your car is taking the power it needs from the battery at that point. So the injector's pulsing, the computer running, the air conditioning, the stereo, all the lights on the dash. I mean, all of that stuff is now coming from the battery instead of the alternator. So if there's no power coming back to recharge the battery, you don't have to be a mechanic to figure out what happens next. Once there's not enough juice in the battery to power all of that stuff, you're done. Like, game over. You could put a booster pack on it and probably get a few more miles out of it, but then you're going to kill the booster pack. So you really don't have a whole lot of choices. In any case, I was new to the whole Lexus game, and I'd only had this car a few months at that point, and I just thought, okay, alternator's out, whatever, it's going to cost what it costs. To make matters worse, it was the weekend. I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, but it was like a day and a time when all the repair shops were closed. So, so here we are in a town that we know as tourists, but we're in a strange place. We have a car that won't get us home. Like, what do you do? So my first instinct was like, well, let's just see what's around. And I think we stopped at I think it was an AutoZone, which I know AutoZone is not good. like their parts are not the top of the line stuff. And I get that. Like, I'm not going to argue that with anybody. They have a few things that are fine, though, of course. But for me, with a car that's about to die, the AutoZone was like the best thing I've ever seen. Kind of like if if you really need a cup of coffee, the only thing you can find is a Starbucks. That's like the greatest thing you've ever seen. It may not be the best coffee you've ever had, but it'll get the job done for that moment. So we go into the AutoZone. I price out an alternator, and it was surprisingly expensive. I think it was like $190, $250, somewhere in that range. Maybe more. I can't remember, but it was pricey, especially for AutoZone. And I wasn't thrilled about putting an AutoZone alternator on my car, but I just thought, well, what choice do I have? And so I just kind of played dumb, and I was just honest. So I guess I was just dumb. But I just said to the people at the counter, I said, hey, my car broke down. I don't have my tools. Do you know of any shops that are open that could fix my car? And they said, well, what kind of car do you have? And I told them. They said, well, there's a guy named Juan who used to work at a Lexus dealership, and he lives just down the street. He might be able to do it. And they gave me his number. Again, talk about a lucky star. Found a dealer tech who lived. Thanks for no signal. You guys didn't see that, but that was not cool. Classy sticker. Classy driver. So in any case, I ended up hooking up with this guy, Juan. He ended up being very nice. I think him and his brother were both mechanics. I was able to drive over to his house and left, I just left the car in his driveway and gave him the alternator. Then he calls me back like 6 hours later. He's like, yeah, I changed your alternator, but the old one failed because power steering fluid leaked all over it. So you're going to need a power steering pump. And that's another, the part is another $300. I was like, what? So, that was another job. And Juan didn't charge me very much for labor. I think a couple $100. maybe less. I mean, he was very reasonable, but you know, we had to like refill the coolant, we had to refill the power steering fluid, we had to change 2 pumps. So I think it was like I think it was like $600 or $700 for that repair, plus an additional night in the hotel, maybe 2 nights, I can't remember. Plus I had to get an Uber back to our hotel. Plus I had to rent a car. So, you know, an extra day or 2 in Vegas ended up costing me, you know, close to a G, you know, with hotel, rental car, and Uber. And to make matters worse, and this is great. So, this is a much longer story than I intended on telling, but hey, here it goes. So to make matters worse, I rented a car, right? And this is a problem. Top tip, folks, always check your pockets before you return a rental car. Or after you return, rather. So we were in a hurry to get out of town because our trip had lasted longer than it was supposed to, right? We were going to do a little passing power. Excuse me, pardon me. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. I know, I'm complaining about gas, and then I do that. Deal with it. So the rental place, and I think we used Enterprise, as you do. You know, everyone uses Enterprise. And I think it was like a Nissan Sentra or a Nissan Altima, or I don't know, some sort of Nissan. It was a very forgettable car, but it was fine. You know, it was like the cheapest thing I could get, and it got us around town, and that's all I needed. It was fine. So whatever it was I paid for that rental, it was like one of these rental car places at a casino, you know. So I think it was like, it wasn't the Four Queens, but it was like near the Four Queens. Maybe it was Minions. I don't know. I need to get back to Vegas. It's been too long. But so the deal was like they had a drop off in the parking garage, something on like the top floor, you know, something like that. And so I drove the car up there. I parked it. I turned it off. You know, I told the guy, I said, "Oh yeah, the car's here." He's like, "Oh, okay." He looked it over, and we left. And didn't hear anything from the rental car company. Just went home. You know, it took us 5 or 6 hours, whatever. I think we enjoyed the drive home. Made a couple of stops. And so so we get home, and I'm like unloading my pockets, and there they are, both keys to the rental car. You know, I'm back in Los Angeles. The car is in Vegas. It obviously hasn't moved since I have all the keys. And I'm just like, oh man, this is great. So like, I'm already out all that money for fixing the car and the rental car and the hotel, and plus just taking a vacation. And now I've got these 2 key fobs. So the very next morning, I called the rental company, and I said, "Oh, I realized that I still have the keys." They said, "Yeah, you know, you put us in a huge inconvenience." And I mean, the lady gave me like a lot of attitude on the phone. And I said, "Well, why didn't anybody call me? You know, like nobody informed me that I still had the keys. I could have just taken them back." You know, and she's like, "Well, you know, this is going to cost a lot of money," and blah, blah, blah. And she said, "You know, if we don't receive those keys by 5 o'clock today, you know, we're gonna charge, you know, an additional $400 to your credit card," or something like that. I mean, it was like, maybe it was $400 per key. I mean, it was like an exorbitant amount of money. And I said, look, don't do that. I'll put them in the mail right now. That's the best I can do. And so like I ran to FedEx and just did like the most rushed delivery possible. I think it cost me like $60 or $75 to send those keys. So, I mean, that vacation was just the trip that kept on giving, even when it was over. So anyway, those are kind of my top two shockingly expensive repairs. things that seemed like they were going to be no big deal and turned out to be one thing after another. There are a lot of others that have happened to me over the years, but those are kind of like the top two in my mind. So, you know, if you've had something like that, comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. I'll check back in later, but for now, State of the Union, state of the car, 20.3 miles per gallon. I've got it in power mode, so I think that's affecting my gas mileage because I think I'm just driving a little more aggressively. 28 miles since refuel, 49 minutes of driving, average 47 miles per hour, 301 miles of range, and thankfully no warning lights. Coolant level looks good, or I mean the temperature, and yeah, just another lovely day on the LA freeways. I'll check back later. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've made it to darkness. Starting to cool off. 65 degrees. Really lovely evening. You know, you might need a jacket. You know, if a fella went outside, he might get cold. Just saying. Not too cold, but it's, you know, it's a lovely evening. Little sit rep on the car. Another really flawless day in the LS400. You can see we've gone through some gas from where we started at full. Definitely sat in some traffic today, especially on the way back. I mean, I'm not home yet, but you can see 20.2 miles per gallon, 99 miles since refuel. So probably be home in another, I don't know, 6-7 miles, 8 miles, something like that. So yeah, I kind of predicted around 110 miles today, and I think that's about what we're doing. 3 hours in the car since fill up, averaging 43 miles per hour. Looks like we can do another 248. So, you know, the big thing that I found out today with the LS400, and I heard it just now. I was driving away, and there's like a good amount of squeaking coming from the brakes. In fact, maybe I'll pull over and see if we can capture that. I doubt it, but we'll try. Let's see. Now it's silent. So maybe there's nothing wrong. I don't know, but I just think, like, you know, my general rule, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is if you hear a sound, there's probably something going on. You know, those sounds don't just make themselves up. Although it could be in this case that, you know, maybe the brake pads just need to get a little heat in them, or the rotors need to get a little heat, and then they shut up. I don't know, but I would feel better having my mechanic look it over, or at the very least, if I can just kind of stick a flashlight in there and take a look at the brake pads, maybe throw my floor jack under it just so I can get a better peek. So we'll see. I don't know. See how I feel in the morning. I mean, I really should get it checked out. I just don't feel like dealing with cars right now. I mean, that's terrible to say on a car channel, but I have other stuff to do, you know what I mean? I just don't want to do that tomorrow, but I may try and get it done. I also need to get the tires rotated on the van. You know, it's like there's always something. And plus I need to get the Corvette down to the muffler shop, and I need to restore the headlights on the minivan, and I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting. And then of course there's my Kia that's just at the dealership forever. So there's plenty to do. Plus, like, this car is filthy dirty. I need to get the scratches off the hood from impacting that object. And also I just want to kind of have a low-key day if I can, but I don't think that's in the cards. I'll probably get a day off in January or something. That'll be cool. But so that was the day. It was a good day. Like I said, we covered quite a few miles. Nothing bad happened. So, you know, I think every day that we go out and drive and nothing bad happens, that's called a win, you know, all the way around. even if you didn't have like the best day, but as long as you got to where you were going and you got back home to where you belong with no problems, no mechanical problems, no accidents, no injuries, you know, that's always something to celebrate, always something to be happy about. So those of you that aren't having the best day, you know, I hope you can remember that, you know, that we're always fortunate to get where we're going, you know. I don't know why I was thinking of that, but you know, especially covering as many miles as I do, I try not to take it for granted. And even though we all do from time to time, but anyway, hope you're all doing great. Be safe, be well, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good night, or day, or afternoon, or morning. Bye.